and gentlemen, or should I say creeps and creatures, and welcome to our fourth episode of Way Too Spooky. We have a special episode planned for you tonight because it is one of the favorite movies of one of our guests, or one of our hosts, and that's Connor.
I can be a guest tonight. It really doesn't matter, Chris.
No, it doesn't matter.
I'm always a guest in my own home, which is actually where we're filming tonight. For our YouTube subscribers, this is where I live. I live in the garage.
It's a nice garage.
It is. You know, it's got everything I need. I got a beer fridge behind me.
It's no dungeon, but it'll do.
No, it does not match up to your layer, but it's cool enough. I like it. But
Yeah.
this is episode 4, and it's a very special episode because it's, to me, one of the greatest movies of all time.
It's what got you into, I think, horror movies.
I grew up watching this movie, amongst others, but this was a big one I watched in my Pocono house growing up.
Yeah. Now, the movie tonight we're going to be talking to you about is, in fact, Stephen King's Silver Bullet, which is based upon the 1983 book. What's the book?
Cycle of the Wolf or
Cycle
something?
of the Werewolf, I think that's what it is. Yeah. I like this one. I like this movie. I'm similar to the zombie movies like we talked about with Return of the Living Dead. I've never been a big werewolf fan. I'm more the slasher guy.
Yeah.
But you've always talked highly of this one, and I think it hits home. I mean, it's a good movie. It's a good movie to watch, especially given the time of the year. It feels like a late summer movie.
The movie, if you listen to, the Cycle of the Werewolf starts in May, but it goes all the way up to Halloween in the movie itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because the werewolf himself kills, I guess, everyone every full moon.
Yeah.
So I don't know what cycle the full moon's on, but I do know there's a half moon out there right now. It's pretty spooky.
Yeah,
It's
we're
pretty
gonna have to
bright.
jump into this at one point along the episode. But the one thing I didn't pick up on in the movie is, and once we uncover who the werewolf actually is that
Right.
does it base it on the same storylines of was this person bit by a werewolf beforehand?
They don't get into that.
No.
But this is different than most werewolf movies. It's not like he was just bit. This is a werewolf with a cause
Right.
type of deal.
Okay.
Of course, this is before there was M. Night, there was Stephen King.
Yeah.
So he made everything very interesting. So I'm just going to tell you right now, if you want to know who the werewolf is and you're intrigued by this movie, it's very good. This is your 5-second warning. Because we need to explain who the werewolf is anyway.
Yeah.
So just if you want to, it's a mystery halfway through the movie.
And let's keep it a mystery until we get to that point.
Exactly.
So to give you some quick facts, I think, about the movie, again, the movie Silver Bullet, released in 1985, October 11th, 1985. It made $12.3 million at the box office.
Yeah.
On a budget of $7 million. So it wasn't wildly popular against the budget, I should say. It's not hugely successful, but still a profit nonetheless, and it has a 48% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, when seeing it, I'd say that's, for me personally, right around right around where I would give it, maybe a little bit of a higher mark.
I don't know who's judging Rotten Tomato movies nowadays.
No, I don't know either.
I don't think it's people who... Here, when I told you about Silver Bullet, did you even know what that movie was?
No, I didn't.
Most people don't.
No, I've always known a Silver Bullet as a Coors Light, and that was pretty much it. I mean, I knew you kill a werewolf with a silver bullet, but I didn't know that exactly was what the movie was about.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was, but we used to go to my parents' Pocono house, skiing every single weekend, even in the summer too. We'd drive up there and you'd pick up a VHS, and I guess at some point we picked up Silver Bullet, and it was a great movie to watch in the wilderness with the lights off.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's the score. I'll say this, that makes or breaks a horror movie, especially back then.
Mm-hmm.
Still holds up to me. I don't know if it imprinted me at a certain age.
Yeah.
But no, it's still pretty good because I try to look past that, assuming I'm just the average person who's seen this movie.
Yep.
Because he's not your average werewolf who's just breaking in, just slaughtering people. He has a rhyme and reason before.
Sure.
He does.
I would say there's 5 main characters of this movie to really care about and focus on.
Your favorite one's in this, right? Gary Busey?
Gary Busey, the recently resurgent Gary Busey, which I'm sure we'll just jump into that.
I figure what better time to talk about the great Gary Busey. Especially you horror fans know that he's recently... he was actually at a HorrorCon not too far from here in Marlton, New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
He's been accused. I'm not going to crucify the man yet, but if you look at a picture of him, Gary Busey now, you're like, I kind of believe what they're saying.
Sure. Oh my gosh, yeah. He looks like an absolute nutcase.
Yeah, the guy. He did fall off a bike, right, years ago.
Yeah, apparently he got like in the I think late '80s. He fell off his bike,
Is that when
a
he
motorcycle,
did?
and he's got like some serious brain damage. So it's like, to look. I don't know the whole storyline, but
well, he goes to HorrorCon, so he was in a bunch of horror movies.
yeah.
He actually came back in like the 2000s before it was like Gingerdead Man.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Never watched it.
No.
We're gonna have to watch it at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's I guess him and Corey Haim was in the movie as well.
Yep.
He did some horror movies in the 80s, Lost Boys. So this was a good era for like horror movies for these two.
And actually, I found an odd connection here, which is where I'm starting to think that we might be able to draw a conclusion as to who the werewolf actually is. First and foremost, as we said, Gary Busey, he plays Uncle Red in it.
He's an awesome uncle, by the way.
And here's the fun fact: he was one of the bad guys in the first Under Siege.
I
don't know if you recall that. Well, Everett McGill, who plays Reverend Lowe.
And you're a big Everett McGill fan, right?
Huge Everett McGill fan. He played Marcus Penn in Under Siege 2, Dark Territory.
I think I remember that, actually.
Which leads me to believe that potentially the fact that they're both in an Under Siege movie is that the werewolf is played by none other than martial arts expert Steven Seagal.
Yeah, it actually turns out to be Steven Seagal, but I didn't want to ruin that for our listeners,
Yeah. So I guess we're going to end up right now. The movie's Steven Seagal is the werewolf, and so I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Well, weird enough, I watched a random horror movie the other night with Gary Busey. It was an '89 movie.
Right.
It's called Hider in the House.
Okay.
I think I tagged Way Too Spooky in it.
Oh, that's the one when he hides in the house. No one can tell that.
So I'm not going to tell everything of what's going on in this movie in case we actually go down that path one day of talking about it.
Yeah.
Doubtful, but I'll gladly do it. It was entertaining. So Gary Busey just lives in his family's home, and they never really notice him. It's amazing how he kind of just stalks around. And right after that, I watched Silver Bullet, just because I've seen Silver Bullet so many times, but I figured we had to watch it again before this podcast. And especially in the horror community, that's called a back-to-back Busey.
Okay.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about. That's when you're like, all right, it's time for another Gary Busey movie.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Gary Busey films are like one of those like Sunday matinee films you always watch. It's like you're taking a nap on a fall day, and it's just what else is on? It's on.
He was in that Wesley Snipes movie. Remember that parachute movie? I don't know if you remember that. He was in some good action movies. Yeah. Lethal Weapon.
He was in a lot of movies. He was in Predator too.
He was.
He gets cut in half by the Predator from that's when they use
that's right.
Yeah. That was a good death scene.
So as of right now, everything that's going on with Gary Busey, we're not going to say anything about it, but we did have to drop our hashtag Team Busey.
That's right.
It was for a whole different reason, but we can't just use that right now because it's not a good look.
Right. No, not at all.
But he played Uncle Red.
Right. So like we said, Uncle Red is played by Gary Busey. Everett McGill, one of his biggest fans, plays Reverend Lowe. Corey Haim, the late and great Corey Haim, I suppose.
My chair breaking everywhere.
Plays Marty Coslow. The sister Jane, she's the narrator. Which I like her voiceover, but she's the.
Was she?
Yeah, it's supposed to be from the perspective of the sister.
Yeah, as she's older, but that's not her real voice.
No, of course not. It's supposed to be as she's older. And then you've got the werewolf, who is unknown at this point.
Yeah.
So today, I guess what's kind of fitting about today in this episode is that I went over to a Polish festival today, and there's a lot of it was packed. It was mob scene, and there was a lot of priests and nuns walking around the grounds because it was at a church. And oddly enough, I didn't see any kids on gas-powered wheelchairs there. But aside from that, it seemed very much like how this movie opens. It opens at a fair.
Yeah.
In spring.
Oh, this is good old Americana.
Yeah, in the 70s. I mean, and I like that. It's Americana. There's no cell phones. There's no technology like that. The way the people are dressed, it's just different. It's a little bit more conservative, but it's just a different world that doesn't exist anymore, I don't think, in a lot of places. And so you're introduced to Corey Haim's character of Marty. He's the silver bullet, if you will, because he's sitting in the wheelchair that is considered the silver bullet, if I understand that correctly, right?
At some point, what happens is Uncle Red, the coolest uncle ever, recreate. So Corey Haim is paralyzed from his legs down. He's the main star. Uncle Red recreates this amazing wheelchair. It's like gas powered, and it's called the Silver Bullet. And if you Google it, this thing's been on T-shirts, things like that. It probably goes like 80 miles per hour. Just the coolest thing. And Uncle Red is like the coolest drunk uncle you want to have. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. What I didn't understand about that though is like, you don't know the background. At least I didn't pick up on the background as to why he's in a wheelchair in the first place.
No, they don't.
You know, and he's paralyzed, I guess, from the waist down. So you'd think that they would try to take a little bit more caution in like what he's sitting in and what he's using to get around, rather than a gas-powered wheelchair. You know, because if he's going 50, 60 miles per hour, which at one point he is, you got thrown off that thing, he'd be immediately killed.
Well, that's what Uncle Red said. He goes, "It would kill me if you got hurt on this." And that wheelchair is fucking awesome.
It is.
Hey, it make you kind of wish that, all right, if there's one upside, if you couldn't use your legs, if I could get a wheelchair like that and I can get around town, that's awesome. And he has like the flags on it and the whole 9 yards. Uncle Red is is three times married now, a drunk. And a scene that always stuck with me is, he's playing cards with them, and he's just drinking wild turkey.
Straight out of the bottle.
Straight out of the bottle.
I mean, he's like an alcoholic. No wonder the mom has some concerns about him hanging around.
There's like alcoholics in there, and if you have an Uncle Red who's drinking wild turkey out of a bottle, it's kind of like, I'm just the drunk uncle is what he is.
It is a perfectly cast character in that regard.
I mean, he looks
like a drunk.
Exactly like an Uncle Red.
Yeah.
And the way the jokes he's playing, and I used to get Jared with that all the time. He goes, it always stuck with me, especially as a kid. This guy goes into a bar and he keeps calling the bartender jackass. And at some point, the other patron's like, "Why do you always let this guy call you a jackass?" And he goes, he always calls me that. And then he has like the heavy, like drunk laugh.
I forgot about that joke.
You said that. On the Yankees, piso on the Indians. It's like everything about him's just loud.
Yep.
And then he gets into a fight with his
sister.
So
fast forward into the movie, gets into it, and it's a small town.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think I picked up on this where it's supposed to take place.
Well, it was actually filmed in North Carolina. I do know that much.
Okay.
But they never told you. It was like Tarkersville or something like that. They never give you the actual town.
Okay.
Most horror movies don't say.
Yeah.
Exactly where it's filmed. But
and then slowly but surely there starts to become a few victims throughout. Right.
The first guy gets killed, but
he's the drunk
he's another town drunk.
He's a town drunk.
Yeah.
And they think that they chalk it up to him dying on.
He was cleaning the railroad.
Right.
And they just assumed he passed out, and then a train took his head off.
Yep.
And that's where the mystery begins. And that's the beginning of the cycle, right?
Yeah.
So the second killing happens. Now, this is where we've already warned our listeners who are like, I got to see Silver Bullet. And if you haven't seen Silver Bullet, go watch it. Because we kind of have to explain who the werewolf is. I think it's only fair to do that where it is. Do you think we should?
Whatever you feel as though is necessary.
Yeah.
You're the werewolf expert, my man.
I'm a werewolf expert. So this is a werewolf with a cause. It's actually the town reverend. It's the priest, Everett McGill. So he's
God, I love Everett McGill.
You celebrate the man's entire catalog, dude. I've never actually. You're the only diehard Everett McGill fan I've ever met.
Well, you've been in my room. You know, when I close the door, I just have a shirtless
it just
poster.
says Everett.
It just says.
It doesn't even say McGill. It just says Everett.
It just says Everett, and there's a picture of him, black and white. And he's just it's beautiful.
But they tell you who that is anyway. You could piece together the facts.
It's pretty quick in the movie that you kind of know who it is. But little by little, he starts to pick off people's and members of the town.
So he does it. He kills people based off their sin. So he kills that first girl in the beginning.
Because she wants to commit suicide, right?
Exactly. So he saved her life from eternal salvation.
So he thinks he's doing God's work.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, he is the werewolf. He's chosen.
Yes.
He don't want this.
No.
He doesn't think he's doing God's work. If you became a werewolf one day, Chris, you'd be like, why is this happening? You'd have to figure out what you're doing. So I think either he channels in his inner werewolf when he becomes it.
Yeah.
Or he's just set on that path.
I think if I became a werewolf, I would be like Michael J. Fox, Teen Wolf. Like,
you mean just like shoot hoops and play basketball?
Yeah,
and kill
like,
it in varsity.
People
basketball?
would absolutely like just love me. You know, I'd be walking down like all cool shit.
Well, do you know what's wild is they did they did that movie. They never did a follow up. Well, they did.
Teen Wolf 2? Yeah, Jason Bateman's in it.
Did he play in college?
Well, that I don't know, but I know Jason
because
Bateman's
he was so good. Why didn't he just like go off to college or the NBA one day?
Yeah, it's odd because in the world where we are so unaccepting of like others, they seem to really really warm up to the werewolf.
Well, the truth is, Chris, once you can dunk or drop a 3-pointer, you become accepting of all sorts of things.
That's
you know
true.
What I mean?
Yeah, as long as the team's winning.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. It's asses in seats.
Yeah.
I would go pay to see a werewolf play basketball.
Now, one of the victims of the werewolf in this movie, who I think truly had it coming, was the drunk dad.
Yeah.
He makes
He's a piece of shit.
He's a total piece. He makes some comment about Corey Haim. He says like, "Goddamn cripples." Yes. What does he say? Like
So Corey Haim, he likes this girl. They go back to his house, his little shack, and he's just a fall over drunk. he's like Hannah. He's like, come on, get inside. And then as soon as she comes inside, he's just looking at Corey Haim in a wheelchair, just drinking a beer, and he goes, "Goddamn cripples." He goes, "They'd all be electrocuted," or something like that. It was up to him.
It's so terrible.
It's just a piece of shit.
Yeah. So at this point, you're introduced to 3 alcoholics,
and he watches wrestling, like thinking it's real.
Yeah. Oh man, I love characters like that.
Yeah, but I just it's dude just always drunk. But he was a good kill. What I liked about him was he's watching wrestling and then he hears something. This guy has no business owning a greenhouse. And he goes, "I'm going to go out there and find who's fucking around with my pots and plants." I'm like, this guy is not playing in pots and plants.
No, he's like half in the bag at all moments. He's just a drunk.
Hammered, dude.
Yeah.
Like I guess half the people in these towns are just hammered anyway.
Yeah, and I guess that's what they think. You know, it's
small town America.
Like, who cares? You know, people are dying, but of course they're dying. They're alcoholics, but it's actually the werewolf.
They all carry in these towns. This is like it's a blue collar, like Pocono type town.
Yep.
They all got shotguns. The bar scenes are great. I love it. It reminds me of some bars we've been to, but if the closest thing to here would be like the Clubhouse in Newtown.
Yeah, that's the one thing I really picked up on in this movie is the bars, because
dude, private justice.
Everyone has like legit like everyone's part of the conversation. It's wild. Like I've never been in a bar where like there's that many people and everyone can hear one another at the same time talk. It's just like it's this big open room.
Yeah.
Where everyone
table,
just
Coors Light. It's great.
It's beautiful.
But there's something about these monster movies. Jeepers Creepers had it. There's always a place where the town folk are.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, you've watched a few werewolf movies. There's a correlation between priests and the town folk who kind of gather together to try to kill this thing. Yeah. Do you know what movie I'm talking about? It's the Howlin' 7, right?
Howlin' 7 New Moon Rising.
For a different episode, we will talk about
Yeah, it's like I as we're talking about this movie,
you just keep thinking about that.
I keep thinking about the Howlin' 7. Like, this is probably how a werewolf movie should be done.
Chris, most of you viewers don't know this, but Chris is a die-hard Howlin' 7 fan.
I am.
We're a fan of the whole franchise.
I am.
It's actually me who's a fan of it. But the whole franchise altogether is really cool. But there is a parallel universe between certain things in these werewolf movies where there's kind of like the same things going on.
Yeah.
So, but what I like about Silver Bullet is, and this is the genius behind Stephen King, is this isn't just a werewolf who got bit. He's smart. He has a reason. It's well written. I think it was actually well acted, well casted.
I agree.
Yeah.
I like the fact that too, moving forward, like what they early on they kind of explain to you, you start to get the sense that the Reverend is in fact the werewolf.
Yeah, he wakes up out of a deep sleep.
Well, but they kind of like it's almost like he's dreaming it, but he doesn't really like. It's not him himself. He's almost dreaming of the victims.
Because he's the one who has to give the sermons
Yep.
for all these victims that he killed. Or at least he killed when he was a werewolf.
And when Marty picks up on the fact that it's him, that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Is that he picked off one of his friends after like they were out late, which at that point they were climbing in the trees.
His friend
I have to point out the fact that Marty's character, for having no bottom leg strength, his upper body strength is unbelievable.
Well, it would be.
He pulls himself into a tree with absolutely no effort, and it's unbelievable.
But if you just use your upper body, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But the music, when they showed Brady, I will say this, it still freaks me out. It is probably the greatest score, in my opinion. You know, Halloween's up there too, of course. But like just every little sound, I don't know. You have to listen to it. I'm not bad at. I'm really bad at describing sounds and things like that. But watch the movie. Every little chill sound of music or whatever is so well done.
Sure.
That it still holds up to this day. That it's creepy.
Yeah.
It's like there's a when he stalks the werewolf itself, because he stalks too.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a Jaws type of sound. If I had to describe it one way, it's that deep orchestra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it signals that he's around every time.
Yeah.
And I like that. You know, they bring that back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a point where
you don't see him completely all the way.
I like when he comes after Marty on the bridge.
The bridge scene. Yeah. That bridge is still there. I looked that up.
Oh, is it a real thing?
Yeah, it's in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when he shoots him with a firework, right in the eye.
He got that rocket right in the werewolf's eye, right in Reverend Lowe's eye.
This kid's got great aim. You know, he shoots it right into his eye. Now, not knowing, he doesn't know at the point that that's the Reverend yet, right?
No, not at all. He doesn't know there's a werewolf.
Yeah.
He just knows there's a killer out there, and they were already on like curfew anyway, because his friend had just been slaughtered.
Yep.
Turned into pieces, which makes you think how dumb he was for even going out there.
So the next day, I guess, in the next couple of days, they start to research and think, you know, all right, he knows that he shot somebody in the eye, so they're looking for someone who has been shot in the eye, and that's where I think you start to. I think that's where it kind of hits you that it is in fact the Reverend, because the Reverend's eye's been.
Yeah, he's got a patch on his eye.
He's got a patch on his eye, and so I like the fact that Marty, you know, being a young kid who also looks like a young Woody Harrelson. He makes certain faces.
Yeah.
Corey Haim's character, but he starts to send him letters. I know who you are.
He did that old classic cut out letters and paste and sent it to him.
Yep.
And it gets really good after that, because Reverend Lowe seems like a good dude when he's not a werewolf, but then he slowly becomes more evil as a pedestrian.
Yep. He starts to almost like make peace. Own it. He starts to own who he is, and that's like
as he goes, all right, I'm a werewolf. This is what I'm supposed to do. God sent me, and that's where it turns in like the cat and mouse game, where he tries to veer him off the road, and there's that famous scene where there's like that pier. It reminds me of like
the covered bridge,
the
right?
Covered bridge. It reminds me of the one in Newtown at Tyler Park.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or I don't want to say this because it's going to bring up bad memories for you. Crybaby Bridge. That's a classic Bucks County.
I think that legend goes like to every town, but that's the one.
Yeah, it does go to every town, but you went there and you came out crying. You're like, I'm never going back to Crybaby Bridge. Is that correct? I just want to get that on record.
Something like that, yeah.
All right, there's certain things I just want to get on record since we're recording. And
I may have cried a bit.
Yeah.
I might be the Crybaby Bridge, or Crybaby from Crybaby Bridge.
To our 10 million listeners out there, Crybaby Bridge is a classic Bucks County wives' tale, right?
It is, yeah. I think that's
Bucks County's spooky. We got a lot of those.
We are one of the spookiest places on earth.
I just think like we just know that, but not everybody else knows that. So we always have to make reference to the point that you cried at Crybaby Bridge.
Yes, I appreciate you.
And all these other spooky things. Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's a very spooky town.
It is.
So
I love it though.
Yeah, he didn't really cry at Crybaby Bridge, but there is a Crybaby Bridge here.
But yeah, the point is that's one of the best scenes is that when he starts to get chased by the Reverend in the car, right?
Yes.
And I like when he's
giving a sermon to him as he's walking up to him, clutching his hands like that.
Yeah, and he's ready. He's ready to kill.
Because he saved her life. But he goes, I can't kill myself because it's the greatest sin. And then he talked about why he killed that girl in the beginning, which he must have known that was going to happen. Because how would he have known that unless he wasn't listening on the conversation?
I don't understand how some of the stuff.
So he killed a drunk just because he was a bad dad.
Plot holes, but I guess I don't know how he knew. That she was planning to kill herself in the first place.
Yeah,
maybe he's got that extra sense.
So he kills drunks just because they're drunks. He killed her. That was his rationale.
Yeah.
But then he killed a cop because the cop was on to him.
Yeah.
So his whole premise of why he does what he does starts to get real faulty there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
But then they bring in they being the sister and the brother Marty. They ask, this is where they ask Uncle Red to come on in.
Dude, Uncle Red's a man.
He is the man.
This character is great. This is vintage Busey. I'm gonna say this is a long time ago, but he played a really good character.
Yeah.
He seemed like that uncle, that cool uncle that you just want to hang out with. He's always busting jokes. He's real quick. He put together the kick-ass silver bullet wheelchair that he had.
Yeah.
From that, this thing was badass.
It was.
Yeah.
I liked it. So, long story short, Marty gets away in that bridge because I think he gets some help, right?
Yeah.
From someone, and then they enlist Uncle Red to help them to melt down, I guess, their silver necklaces, right?
One was like a Catholic cross, and then something else, which is ironic because he's a priest. So that was part of Stephen King magic in his writing,
Yeah, and I'm not always a big Stephen King fan. Like, I don't want to say that I dislike his work. It's just, it's always unsettling to me, and I don't know if it's like.
Have you read his books?
I haven't read a lot of his books, but
I've
watched a lot of his movies.
I just say I'm a Stephen King fan because I like his movies.
Yeah.
But I've not read his books. The last legit horror book or books in general that I've read is like Goosebumps. A shout out to R.L. Stein. Is that?
Oh yeah, R.L. Stein. Hope you're listening, bro.
Yeah.
Hopefully you get some ideas for some new books.
Yeah, because it was an easy read at the time.
Yeah.
And we could do a whole series on Goosebumps.
I won't be part of that. No. I refuse.
No, we don't need to do that. So, thus far, there's been good kills. When he killed the cop, a big thing in werewolf movies is the transformation scene.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. I mean, mind you, this movie was filmed in 1985. You've seen some other transformation scenes, like the Howlin' 7. Terrible. But this was pretty well done for that, what they were dealing with back then. It was actually really good.
Yeah.
It wasn't phony. The werewolf itself was huge. It was a big werewolf.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was
like a bear.
I thought the any moments where you saw the werewolf or the transformation was really well done. I mean, it's like a legit 80s werewolf movie. They didn't have the CGI that they have now. Like,
no.
I think I brought it up in the first episode, the Underworlds, like with the werewolf.
No.
They didn't have any of that, so you got to give them credit for that to make that stuff absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
And I think.
Well, they don't show him completely until the bridge scene, but they showed a lot of his hands when he's coming up on something.
Yeah.
Or they show him off in a distance, which kept the mystery of it all.
Yep.
Which kept it cool. And that's a big deal in horror movies in general.
Yeah.
Is you can't show too much right away of the actual thing. And that's where Jeepers Creepers kind of.
Well, it's kind of all about what you think you saw, right? A lot of the time.
What's the mystery and everything?
Yeah.
It's the mystery mixed with the music.
Yeah,
that makes it so cool.
Yeah, you're trying to think in your mind, how horrible could this thing be? I've seen its hands. I've seen its feet.
You see its eyes?
I've seen what it can do to people. What does it look like? And when you actually see it, I think it's pretty good.
There's 3 scenes that it just peers in on the werewolf's eyes behind a tree, under that greenhouse.
Yep.
And one other place, and it pairs up perfectly with the music, the score of the movie, and it is so well done. So I can't emphasize that enough for the real people out there in the horror community who want to watch a good werewolf movie, because I know there's a lot of garbage. There's a lot of garbage movies anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
But this, not everybody knows about this. Watch that movie, and the way they build up towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
Is really good. And he's a big werewolf. He's huge. He's like a big bear.
Yeah. I'd say I was a little underwhelmed at the end.
Right.
Like
the fight scene?
It's it's good, but it's not long enough. No. Underwhelming, and then it's too short. Well,
that's the thing. He would take people's heads off with one swipe, but Gary Busey gave him a run for his money. They all did. You know what I mean? They were throwing everybody against. I don't know. Maybe he wanted to make it personal or something.
I don't know. I liked how in the beginning too it doesn't even swipe at the guy's head and just rip his head right off.
Well, he gets it off with one swipe.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, he just knocks it off.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
he could have just done that with everybody if he really wanted to. But he's smart enough when he's a werewolf to like cut the power and do things like that. So
yeah, he's an electrician. He knows all these things. He knows how to handle all that to make the perfect kill.
Yeah.
So I liked it.
I liked him. Did you like the kills in this movie?
I did. Yeah, but it leads all the way up to the end, right? So Gary Busey helps his niece and nephew melt down their silver bullets. I guess it's their nickel.
Yeah, and that's the legend behind this. It takes quote obviously the name of the movie. It's a big thing in werewolf is silver kills a werewolf.
Right.
So they needed a silver bullet.
Silver, I say nickel.
Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't matter.
Nah.
I know out there's one diehard werewolf fan who's like pounding the table right now waiting for us to correct that.
He's just like flipping shit. Yeah.
Because nickel doesn't kill a werewolf.
Nickel.
These guys are running a podcast on horror movies.
Shut these guys down. They're horrible.
He's just pulling his hair in his mom's basement right now.
He wishes death upon me right now via werewolf.
There's just werewolves everywhere. Because werewolves did make a resurgence. What was that big... See, I don't know anything that new. What was the big one that came back where they're really good-looking werewolves and vampires?
Twilight?
Yeah. I didn't watch any of that.
Were you Team Edward or Team Jacob?
I don't know anything about that.
Just kidding.
We're Team Busey on that. I'm just kidding.
That's right.
We're Team Busey. And for anybody who's listened to this, again, we started off talking about back-to-back Buseys. You got to do a back-to-back Busey. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only way to watch horror movies starring Gary Busey.
You got it, but you got to booze like Busey does in this movie.
You got to drink Wild Turkey.
Just straight from the bottle and just get...
And just laugh, and you need big old white teeth, and you just need to be cracking up. You got to be Uncle Red. You have to absorb into the character.
Well, our guest from last episode, Brad, he resembles Gary Busey quite a bit.
He does, and I mean that's in your bloodline. Yeah. So there's an Uncle Brad and there's an Uncle Red in everybody's family line. He does remind me of him on multiple levels. You know what I mean? It's just funny if we could just fast forward and like he looks just like Gary Busey now.
Yeah.
I don't know how was he, like 60? I don't. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I think he's in his 70s.
Yeah, easily. So, good thing we didn't go to that horror convention.
No. But so the werewolf breaks in the last night after they make their silver bullet. With the two kids are sleeping on the couch, and Uncle Red's watching over them.
Dude, he puts up a fight.
He does.
Dude, he's hitting him with like he's like wrestling with him. Mm-hmm. And I remember that as a kid too. He has like the fire stoker.
Yep.
And he's like really going like muscle to muscle with him.
Yeah.
And then Corey Haim eventually gets the bullet that fell out when the werewolf busted in, knocks the gun loose, gets him in the other eye.
Again, perfect shot.
Perfect shot.
The only other person I know that has a perfect shot like that in a horror movie is Laurie Strode.
She got Michael Myers in both eyes,
Halloween
right?
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the ER room or the gas room.
He just never died, but he could still see.
Yeah, that never made any sense to me. It's like he gets shot in the eyes and he's still like I get it. Look, he's you can't kill the guy,
right?
But how is he still able to see?
Yeah, but there never was a silver bullet too. So this Reverend Lowe died. So,
and I like that too. I like that they never.
It's like
they had to start a new franchise or a new movie line just to continue a werewolf story. That's the beauty of this movie that I have to appreciate is they didn't try to push it beyond what it was, and so it's a good story.
So how do you feel about Private Justice, Chris? They touched up on Private Justice. Don't you remember that? Don't you remember when the cop in the town couldn't find out who was doing these killings, and then there was a scene at the bar, and they were talking about Private Justice, and like these guys were clearly ex-World War II dudes.
Yeah.
Or about 10 years out of Vietnam. Well, the movie was supposed to take place in '76, right?
Right.
So this was during that time period, but these guys were dressed like militia. But that was a big thing about the movie. It's kind of like the police can't do their jobs, but we will.
Yeah.
And then somehow they all go into the woods, and they get murdered. At least 3 or 4 of them get picked off.
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about that scene.
Yeah, that's a big scene in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you got to do what you got to do, and I would think that, a lot of this town, Bucks County, would react the same exact way if things started falling apart like that. You know, an unknown beast starts to take out children and adults. You know, I think they're going to start to get like lynch mobs coming out and just trying to, you know, make the world right again. You know, you had lynch mobs in Jaws. Remember when they all go out and they start to like chum the waters? You had lynch mobs in Halloween 4. You know, there's always the lynch mob is a horror movie trope.
I think that's what it comes down to. It's kind of like you're not doing your job, or you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
So let's all get together, and then they all realized they couldn't do the job, and they all just kind of went back to their lives. They're like, "Nah, I'm done. I saw what I saw.
Yep.
I can't fix anything," and then they went about living their lives.
Yeah.
And then Gary Busey didn't until he actually saw the werewolf. Finally believed them. Yeah. After everything.
His reaction when he comes through,
he knew when the power went out. He's like he had the bullet in his hand.
Yeah, and you don't scare Gary Busey very easily. But
no,
he got spooked.
You don't scare the star of Hider in the House.
No, absolutely not.
The guy lived in this. I can't even begin to talk about that.
Now I know that a lot of you are probably lost and thinking, "Oh my gosh, I can't remember the scientific rating scale." But to remind everyone. Again, on a scale of 1 to 4, going spookless, not too spooky, spooky, and way too spooky.
Still patent pending.
Still patent pending. All right, don't try and take that from us. You know, we got...
like this is a time we've actually taken this spectrum and ran it by multiple experts. Mm-hmm. They're like, this is perfect. Yeah. Like this is insane.
I know.
And matches up every single time.
Yeah, competitors cannot keep up.
So, like, forget Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
That 48% garbage bullshit score.
What'd you think of...
pisses me off.
What'd you think of this movie? What would you give it?
Now, I have to say this because we always have new listeners. I have a rationale, and based off the criteria, Spookless was a complete fucking dud. Yeah. It sucked. Not too spooky, but it had one element that was okay. Yeah. Whether it was a scare, it's good acting, it was entertaining. Yeah. Spooky, a little bit more, but it's not quite there. Mm-hmm. And then not too spooky, which is just insane. So, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for this. I know werewolves aren't the biggest thing. But based off when this movie came out, based off how I believe it still holds true, based off there were so many moments in that movie with his eyes and the music and the score. If this was released today, it probably wouldn't hit that meter. No. But for me, very few movies actually hit that Richter scale. I'm going to say this movie was way too spooky.
Really?
I know. This is the only...
Surprising. Yeah, you know what? And I'm if it's going to be anybody that's going to give it that... I
have to. I feel like I'm loyal.
And so for me, I'd say it's not too spooky.
I know. I knew you were going to say that, too.
You know, werewolves don't do anything for me in that way.
Right.
It's not a bad movie by any means.
It's not even about the werewolf.
It's probably the best werewolf movie you could watch that I could recommend. Yeah. Without getting too... I don't know, to become too much. It's a simple movie, and it uses simple effects, which I think go a long way for the movie, but it's just...
The score, the build-up, the storyline...
Totally watchable.
This werewolf stalks.
Yeah.
He's slow moving. They kind of did it right, and it did scare me. If you told me today that I would go up in the Poconos and the lights would be out, and I'm watching that movie, and I had to go walk outside, dude, my heart's still pounding. Yeah. So for me personally, I'm gonna have to say this is kind of up there in the right setting for the new person. Watch it with the lights out. Music alone will get you.
Okay, I can give it that. Yeah, I still think.
And it's Stephen King.
Yeah,
it was good.
I think, judging from other Stephen King films and judging from when I saw it in full, which is a lot later on in my life, where I was a little bit older, a lot more mature, I would say not too spooky, but trying to put myself in the shoes of a younger kid, young teenager watching it maybe. Definitely, at least spooky. But I'd say for right now, I would love to know what everyone else thinks. You see that there's a vast difference between my feelings on this movie and Connor's. But it's probably completely reversed when we go through the slasher films.
And mind you, I try to put myself in somebody else's position watching this movie. Yep. But it was a good movie. It wasn't like bad. It wasn't a bad movie. It was entertaining.
Not at all. It's not like The Howling 7.
No. It was well written. I liked it. And, part of the deal here is there's so much in horror. I have to listen to Chris, my co-host, say this movie was not too spooky when I know deep down inside he thinks Halloween Resurrection with Busta Rhymes was one of the scariest movies he's ever seen. But I have to respect that.
But Michael Myers he's a soundbite.
Because it touched him different.
He's a killer shark in that movie.
He's the only Michael Myers who talked.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a movie for another time.
That's going to be season 3 or 4.
But there's very few times I'm respectful of everybody's opinions, and that could be fighting words. But I totally get it because if I watch it again now, I see where you're coming from. But all things considered, watch this movie if you're a horror fan, if you're a werewolf fan. It's really good.
So what are your, a pairing of it? Which drink would you pair with?
Oh, that's easy, dude. That's so easy.
You're not prepared.
Yeah, we kept it nice and cold. Kept it nice and cold for our viewers. It has like a rustic vibe to this movie. It's a dive bar, and this is actually, you see it in the back, and it's Silver Bullet, Coors Light. You can't go wrong with that. This movie is a Boilermaker type of movie.
Yeah,
it's a beer and a shot times of townspeople.
Yep.
Digging up themselves some private justice. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, but that, and I like the retro because she collected cans to bring to the drive.
Yeah.
And you see this, and they bought this back.
The only thing that you could drink, the only other thing that you could drink besides that, if I may,
it's for you.
Would be just a warm bottle of a wild turkey like Uncle Red.
Uncle Red. Well, that's it. I'd like to pair it with a shot.
Right.
That's how you do it. But I did not run out to the store today and buy a bottle of wild turkey for this. I don't even know the last time I even had wild turkey.
Well, it's good to know that you don't have a drinking problem like Uncle Red. Yeah,
he's awesome though.
He
but
is.
You know what's funny? He sobered up towards the end when he was going to watch him.
Yeah.
And that's when a werewolf comes into his life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what the hell?
That's what happens usually.
I'm sober now, a werewolf.
Finally get their lives together, and then something crazy happens, like a werewolf breaks into your home and it goes through the wall. Nonetheless, it just it's
it was a physical altercation with that werewolf.
Yeah.
So it's not like he'd be like, oh, I need a drink after this. He can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So if you're a werewolf fan,
highly recommend.
Or you've always wanted to understand a little bit more about the werewolf movies, I would say this is a good jumping point. To get your feet wet, and to really, watch an enjoyable movie. Is it, from my perspective, super scary? No, it's
no.
But again, that's just me.
Right.
You ask Connor, and it's way too spooky, and you may see the same, feel the same exact way. So,
and please tell Chris or me why we're so dead wrong on this.
Right. I
want you to engage, give your feedback, watch the movie if you haven't seen it, because you can't really give that much feedback if you haven't watched the full movie. Slash that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever. We don't want to be greedy and tell you to do everything, but just follow us any way you want.
Yep. And we're going to continue to spit out these podcasts about different movies.
And if there's a recommendation, because what we want to do, we need to touch on everything, even the stuff that we don't want to.
Yep.
So
we want to gain not only fans of our own, but fans of the horror genre. And we're trying to hit some of the big hitters early on, so you can get a broad range as to how far and how deep the horror genre goes.
So if there's any werewolf people out there, by all means, we can totally do. We got another one. The big classic is American Werewolf in London. At some point, we'll do that. Let us know. Reach out to us. We appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, and we're going to be back next week with it's going to be a fun one.
So on behalf of Connor, this is Chris. This is the Way Too Spooky podcast.
Episode 4.
Episode 4. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Take care.